Anyone who grew up with Grand Theft Auto in their childhood knows that a staple of those games that made them so intriguing was the locked island restrictions. If you wanted to see what was beyond that bridge, you had to complete the story in order to progress in the game. Why are all the bridges in GTA games closed? I mean the backstory, the actual reasons in the game lore as to why we can't cross them. What happens if we do cross them earlier than the game wants us to? Let's start off with Grand Theft Auto 3. The bridge which connects Portland Island to Staunton Island is rendered unusable due to an explosion. This explosion occurs during the game's opening sequence when the protagonist Claude is being transported by police in a convoy, when the convoy is ambushed by a criminal gang, the cartel, leading to an explosion that completely damages it and renders it useless. But there's also tunnels within the game as well, which are closed for construction reasons until you've unlocked the next island. So here's how you can make it to the second island from the very start of the game. As soon as the game starts, you'll notice this steel sticking out from the severed bridge. With a well-timed jump, you'll be able to just about make it to another steel beam on the other side of the bridge, allowing you to now walk freely onto the other side and explore the second island without any wanted level. Rockstar didn't really plan that far ahead. They didn't think that this would be possible, as at this point in the game there's no helicopters in this game, there's no planes, and any boats that you do get access to are not unlocked until much later into the storyline. Beyond Staunton Island lies Shoreside Vale. This time Rockstar needed something new in order to prevent you from going to the other side, so they came up with a perfect idea. The lift bridge that connects Staunton Island to Shoreside Vale is permanently stuck in its upward position. The reason for this is simply down to an electrical fault. However, you can still get to this island thanks to the glitch we've just done. If you access the second island from the first island when you haven't even unlocked the second island, essentially the game doesn't apply any restrictions at all, meaning you can drive all the way to the subway station on the second island and just drive down into the subway station and drive all the way to Shoreside Vale without any restrictions or barriers to stop you. Let's talk about GTA Vice City now, and Rockstar Games still didn't learn their lesson yet by punishing the player for getting to another island early on in the game. When you first start playing GTA Vice City, you'll hear an emergency broadcast on the radio which explains that all of the bridges in the city have been closed down thanks to hurricanes.
All bridges and some roads in the Vice City metropolitan area have been closed because of a severe weather warning. Meteorologists are tracking Hurricane Hermione, which has devastated 5 Caribbean islands and is heading for Vice City. More updates soon.
There's a few ways you can actually bypass these barriers altogether. The first method is by obtaining an ambulance and driving to the Vice City docks. From here you can park the rear of the ambulance like you see here, and simply with a well-timed jump over the barrier and clip through, allowing you to access a boat immediately from the start of the game and just sail over to the other islands. This story would be very similar in GTA Vice City stories, where once again they use the excuse of a hurricane to justify why the bridges are closed at the very beginning. But of course that didn't stop players at all. All you have to do to get past the barriers in this game is obtain yourself a BMX. Head on over to Starfish Island and you can kind of ride along the bridge in this specific location here, being careful not to drop into the water, and well, there you have it. You can simply cycle to the other side and voila, you're in another island from the very beginning of the game. But that would all change come the release of GTA San Andreas. Well, this was the first protagonist in GTA that could ever swim, so technically you can just swim across the barriers. However, when you do swim to the other side, you get a wanted level. Now, why is this? In GTA San Andreas, the reason for the bridges being closed across the entire state is never explained obviously like it is in Vice City. Instead, you need to listen a little bit closer to the radio broadcasts to find the true reason. And it turns out that earthquakes have hit San Andreas very recently.
All transit between Los Santos and the greater Red County area is still strictly limited following last month's earthquake. Officials are not confident as to when things will open up again.
In fact, the earthquakes were supposed to actually be a feature in the game. Even the weather still exists in the game files, and they need to be turned on with mods if you want to see what they do. So why do we get a 4-star wanted level though when we do cross the water? Well, this is actually very clever from Rockstar. In order to prevent the player from going to the other side despite the fact that you can swim, they needed to think of something unique. At the start of the game, Officer Hernandez warned warns CJ not to leave the city, which would totally explain this whole mystery.
Where are the...
Carl, it's Officer Hernandez.
Who?
Officer Hernandez. I work with Tenpenny and Pulaski.
Oh, the bitch. What the hell you want?
Hey, show me some respect, boy.
Go fuck yourself. You just a bitch.
You watch your tone, boy. Now listen, I've got a message from Officer Tenpenny. Don't try and leave town. That would be a big mistake. You hear me? We're watching you.
Whatever you say, bitch.
CJ has been marked as a flight risk, and I guess if he's reported to leave the vicinity that Tenpenny wants him to, this would explain why we get a 4-star wanted level. So while it might seem odd that some bridges open up to the second island before you get access to Los Venturas, I guess you could just chalk it up to builders being lazy, and some of the maintenance workers just didn't open those bridges up on time.
Fallow Bridge, Martin Bridge, and Frederick Bridge have all reopened. Why didn't you open them earlier, you bozos?
And this was the first GTA game to incorporate a wanted level for crossing the bridge. In Liberty City Stories, the Callahan Bridge is currently under construction. The game takes place a few years before GTA 3 in 1998. So at this point in time, the bridge is not usable until a little later on into the storyline. When the bridge is finally unlocked, it isn't yet finished, and instead a stunt jump of construction scaffolding is used to cross the other side. But Liberty City Stories added a brand new transportation method, which was the ferry. However, at the beginning of the game, the ferry workers have gone on strike. If the player tries to cross the mob, he will get swarmed and attacked. The ferry becomes accessible a little bit later on in the game. But what about that infamous lift bridge we mentioned in GTA 3? What happens in Liberty City Stories when you get to the next island? Well, it turns out it's pretty simple. This time it's not an electrical fault, but instead the protesters are still protesting on Staunton Island. So while the bridges might be accessible now from the first to second island, the third is still inaccessible until a little bit later in the game. Of course, this doesn't stop people from already breaking the game though, does it? This game's quite complicated. First of all, to make it to the other side on the first island, you need to find this motorcycle here, which will start a mini game where you're driven around and you have to drive by enemies. Now, the first enemy that you come across, it actually turns out his bike is completely waterproof. You need to try and take him out as quickly as possible, then shoot your own driver to fail the mission. If you don't do it quick enough, this glitch won't work. From here, you can take the guy's motorcycle and drive it into the ocean in the spot you can see here. You'll fall through the map and end up actually teleporting completely to the second island, which is kind of hilarious when you think about it. So now you're on the second island, how do you get to the third island? How do you get to Shoreside Vale? Well, head on down to the hospital, once again in the northern section of Staunton, and you'll find this motorcycle here. Do what I do on screen here and jump on top of the hospital. Now this is going to sound crazy, but you need to drive full pelt into this wall right here. You'll actually fall through the map and land on the underground subway tunnel. Yeah, I have no idea how people found this glitch. From here you can kind of follow what I'm doing on screen, and you want to make it to this area on the map where you can see the third island appearing on the mini-map. Do as I do here and you should fall through the map and teleport into the Shoreside Vale section. Pretty complicated, but also really cool how people managed to even find this in the first place. But there's no wanted level for doing so. So let's talk about Grand Theft Auto 4 and the lore behind why you get a wanted level and why the bridges are closed anyway. Rockstar took a more realistic approach with this game. Rather than making things up like hurricanes or construction, they wanted to come up with something a little bit more creative and a little bit more realistic for the time and era they were depicting in GTA 4, terrorism.
Why don't you show me around the city?
Fucking terrorists!
What?
Terrorists! There's been a big scare and you can't go across the bridges so good.
If you want to, you can just swim or climb right over the barriers, but again this comes at a cost as all the police in the area will come after you. GTA 5 was the first Grand Theft Auto game which released without restrictions. Come to think of it, do you even know what they would do in order to restrict the player? I mean, the entire map is open from the very beginning. But that does beg the question, what's going to happen in GTA 6? Well, many eagle-eyed fans have spotted that Lucia may have an ankle monitor on her leg in some of the artwork for the game. Perhaps we play as Lucia from the very beginning of GTA 6 and we're restricted on our travel with this ankle monitor. If we go outside of the boundary we're supposed to, we end up getting a wanted level. This would certainly be a very interesting and unique way for Rockstar to tackle this approach. So let me know what you guys think about that one down in the comments section below. And I will see you guys in another GTA video very soon.